Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
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 Gopi Janavallabha Giridharadhi
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha
Gopi Janavallabha Giridharadhi
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha
Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Krishna Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, dear devotees, in the room and otherwise. Haribol. We are continuing our journey through the fourth canto today, chapter 25, text 26 through 32. And there's a lot of nectar here. The king he's just now addressing this figurative girl with a series of questions. So we'll hop right into it. There's a lot of juicy purports from Srila Prabhupada that I would like to cover quite a good sum of it. So we'll just hop right in. My dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? So yesterday, Lokaram Prabhu, he covered quite a bit of the specifics. So I'm going to let Prabhupada double down on a lot of the elements that he stated. Prabhupada says in the purport, the 10 strong servants of the mind are the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge gathering senses. Prabhupada says knowledge acquiring in other places. All these 10 senses work under the aegis of the mind. The mind and the 10 senses combine to become 11 strong bodyguards. Later in the purport, Prabhupada says, actually, the living entity, known as Paranjana, is embarrassed by so much paraphernalia. All this paraphernalia simply constitutes different sources of anxiety, but one who is surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who leaves all his business to him is freed from all material anxieties. So King Paranjana, it's becoming known that that we barricade ourselves with so many different levels of stubborn reinforcement through our senses, through our working senses. And as Lokaram Prabhu was touching on yesterday, as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to be pliable, to be what Prabhupada called the age of learning, to be able to not be set in your ways like that. So here Prabhupada's also noting in the purport just how when we have these stubborn reinforcements, when we are set in our ways in a material direction, it becomes very embarrassing for the jiva, for us in our situation, because despite having so much opportunity right before us, we're in the human form of life. We somehow or other have come in contact with Krishna consciousness, and we have so much opportunity, but being set in our ways, we can not value it as and benefit from it nearly as much as we could, or you might even say should. So yeah, it's the question. I think I skipped the text, didn't I? Oh gosh. Okay, let me backtrack. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was supposed to start on text 26. So I'll read 26 now. My dear Lotus Eye, kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. So these questions are being raised, and Prabhupada's noting the significance of them in the purport here. He says, towards the end of the purport, he says, in the animal form, the living entity is completely forgetful of his relationship with God. This is called apohanam, or forgetfulness. In the human form of life, however, consciousness is more greatly developed, and consequently the human being has a chance to understand his relationship with God. In the human form, one should utilize his intelligence by asking all these questions. So what are those questions? More so, at least in the West, how I've heard them and asked them myself growing up, who am I? Where did I come from? What is the meaning of life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Really like having in the West, the society that we have, the culture that we have, which even in the East is becoming quite degraded. These types of questions are so much suppressed. They're so much, they're very much not encouraged and even discouraged, depending on which circle you're in. And why is that? Why would that be the case in any circumstance? Wouldn't you want to know the meaning of life? Wouldn't you want to feel that sense of purpose? But it comes from this separation between ourself and our real purpose, which isn't as enjoyer, to being an instrument of service, to being actually enjoyed. And when you're in a culture that the whole sum and substance, the whole goal is to enjoy the senses, the material body, the false ego, the facility, independently, which is why I had titled the class "The Allurement of Independence." When we're trying to enjoy independently, it's a trap. Just like an allurement, like you, I never got into hunting, but when I found out how tricky it is, I was very disappointed, because I had some chivalrous, like men going in the forest and they're just risking their lives practically, to hunt, to bring home the bacon, so to speak. But it's not like that at all. You put out some bait. I mean, at least most hunters. I don't know, but you put out some bait, some feeder, some salt lick, and you hide in a tent or in a tree, and you just wait. You wait until that allurement has attracted. Whether fishing's the same way. You're pretending to be something on the food chain of that species, and then ripping them out of their situation. So in this human form of life, there can be so many allurements that you could, as devotees, we can consider them tests that are testing whether or not we actually would like to be in the human form of life. They're testing us towards our next situation. What would be most suitable for us? And if we're engaging our bodies and our endeavors in a way that's not utilizing and understanding our dependence, then we'll be put into lower species of life, or at the very least continue in a cycle within this life that's not progressive for the soul. So yeah, so it's important to ask these questions. It's important to know to encourage that level of inquiry within ourselves and our community. So now I'll skip 27 because we did 27. I'll go to 28. My dear beautiful girl, you are exactly like the goddess of fortune, or the wife of Lord Shiva, or the goddess of learning, the wife of Lord Brahma. Although you must be one of them, I see that you are loitering in the forest. Indeed, you are as silent as the great sages. Is it that you are searching after your own husband? Whoever your husband may be, simply by understanding that you are so faithful to him, he will come to possess all opulences. I think that you must be the goddess of fortune, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Therefore, I am asking you where you have thrown that lotus. So King Puranjana, he's flattering. He's trying to understand whether she's married or not, because he's expressing some interest. In the purport, again, we're touching on this point of disconnect. Everyone thinks that his intelligence is perfect. Sometimes one employs his intelligence in the worship of Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, in order to obtain a beautiful wife. Sometimes when one wants to become as learned as Lord Brahma, he employs his intelligence in the worship of the goddess of learning, Saraswati. Sometimes when one wishes to become as opulent as Lord Vishnu, he worships the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. In this verse, all these inquiries are made by King Puranjana, the living entity who is bewildered and does not know how to employ his intelligence. Intelligence should be employed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as one uses his intelligence in this way, the goddess of fortune automatically becomes favorable unto him. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, never remains without her husband. Lord Vishnu, consequently, when one worships Lord Vishnu, he automatically obtains the favor of the goddess of fortune. One should not, like Ravana, worship the goddess of fortune alone, for she cannot remain long without her husband. Thus, her other name is Chanchala, or restless. In this verse, it is clear that Paranjana is representing our intelligence, while he is talking with the girl. He not only appreciated the shyness of the girl, but actually became more and more attracted by that shyness. He was actually thinking of becoming her husband, and consequently was asking her whether she was thinking of her prospective husband or whether she was married. This is an example of bhoga icha, the desire for enjoyment. One who is attracted by such desires becomes conditioned in this material world, and one who is not so attracted attains liberation. King Paranjana was appreciating the beauty of the girl as if she was the goddess of fortune, but at the same time he was careful to understand that the goddess of fortune cannot be enjoyed by anyone except Lord Vishnu. Since he doubted whether the girl was the goddess of fortune, he inquired about the lotus flower she was not holding. The material world is also the goddess of fortune because the material energy works under the direction of Lord Vishnu. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sa Chara Charam. The material world cannot be enjoyed by any living entity. If one so desires to enjoy it, he immediately becomes a demon like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, or Kamsa. Because Ravana wanted to enjoy the goddess of fortune, Sita Devi, he was vanquished with all his family, wealth, and opulence. One can, however, enjoy that Maya bestowed upon the living entity by Lord Vishnu. The satisfaction of one's senses and desires means enjoying Maya, not the goddess of fortune. So yeah, being able to understand the difference and what it actually means to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. That it's that we can end up in a very similar situation as some of these big baddies that we read about in Bhagavatam and Krishna book and elsewhere, and within our direct realm of perception. See, within this world, people just all out, like unabashedly, just trying to enjoy separately, trying like. They're just innumerable examples of that within our governments, within our who we see in the limelight. It's just a great bit of that. So yeah, having a proper perspective of it and association makes all the difference. Next text. O greatly fortunate one, it appears that you are none of the women I have mentioned, because I see that your feet are touching the ground. But if you are some woman of this planet, you can, like the goddess of fortune, who accompanied Lord Vishnu, increase the beauty of the Vaikuntha planets. Also, increase the beauty of this city by associating with me. You should understand that I am a great hero and a very powerful king on this planet. In the purport, Prabhupada's saying, I'll just read this one little part. He says, there is a difference between demoniac mentality and devotional mentality. Devotees know perfectly well that the goddess of fortune, who is the constant companion of Lord Vishnu or Narayan, cannot be enjoyed by the living entity. This higher sense of understanding is called Krishna consciousness. Nonetheless, everyone wants to become happy by imitating the prosperity of Narayan. So I was thinking how how as a child it can, seeing our parents go to work and put, at least my parents, they always had outfits that were for work. My mom was a nurse for most of her life. My father worked in maintenance and he had like some outfit. And I remember kind of role playing a bit, trying on, maybe not my mom's clothes, but my dad's clothes at least. His repair, Maytag repair with his name, and trying it on, and role playing with that idea. So it's something, like Prabhupada said, that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Like it's something like we can appreciate that, like, oh, that my parent, or in a larger sense, Vishnu has a role to fill, and we can appreciate that, and yet at the same time, if I showed up on the work site as an 8-year-old kid in my dad's shirt, the benefit wouldn't have been the same. So yeah, I'll continue to the next text 30. Certainly, your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful, I ask you to be merciful upon me. So we tend to visualize Cupid as, what is it, like a naked baby in a cloud with arrows that he's shooting from some distance. And at least the pride within me makes me think, oh, I could dodge that. Like there's still some like hope of like Matrix, like throwing your body back and like missing the bullet, altering time in some way, being faster than the speed of Cupid's arrow. But here it's being described that there's a Cupid within us, which, yeah, you can't dodge that. At least not with the artificial means that I was noting. And it's very, so we'll read what Prabhupada has to say in a short paragraph here. He says, everyone has lusty desires within, and as soon as one is agitated by the movement of a beautiful woman's eyebrows, go figure, the Cupid within immediately throws his arrow at the heart. Thus, one is quickly conquered by the eyebrows of a beautiful woman. When one is agitated by lusty desires, his senses are attracted by all kinds of vishaya, enjoyable things like sound, touch, form, smell, and taste. These attractive sense objects oblige one to come under the control of a woman. In this way, the conditional life of a living entity begins. Conditional life means being under the control of a woman. And certainly the living entity is always at the mercy of a woman or a man. Prabhu had mentioned the other day this Adi Ras, that like original allurement within this material world. Thus, living entities live in bondage to one another, and thus they continue this conditional material life illusioned by Maya. So I was just considering this Adi Ras a bit, and it brought to mind two verses, very popular verses. Prabhupada would quote them often from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 62 and 63. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodha vijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, so that being the start, you're actually considering, a person develops attachment from them, and from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. And then the following, it goes darker than just anger. If only that was like yeah, you like get mad and then you just go back to your business, but not in this world. Krodad bhavati samhoha, samhohat smriti vibhrama, smritir brahm shad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashad pranashati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So, yeah, I've heard, I haven't had so much direct association with Ritabja Swami, but I very much appreciated Maharaj's endeavors. He had started the Krishna House program back in the day, or at least kept it alive over the years, and a lot of work with the youth as well. And Maharaj is quite known for being a jokester, and devotees knew that even if it was kind of a grosser joke, Maharaj could they could get a chuckle out of Maharaj. But one thing that a Guru Kuli had told me was that if they ever joked about Maya, Maharaj would get very stern with them and say that, we can joke about all kinds of things, but we should never joke about Maya. And I found that very powerful, sobering, because yeah, as it's being described here, we have the most powerful Cupid right within us, and we should be aware of that. We should be careful, as careful as we can be, and proactive in terms of building up our strength and stamina in Krishna consciousness. Even if we feel like if we're in a good place, we should be all the more reason using that energy, that enthusiasm to build up reserves. Even I think you had mentioned, Prabhu, in terms of just like if you're, rather than having it be a feast or famine type situation, build it, having checking off the boxes that keep our connection with Guru and Krishna alive, and keep our travel pack situated to where when we are struggling more on our path, we can feed off of that extra reading that we did, that extra chanting, that austerity, whether it's fasting or otherwise, that we had invested into in the past. So we have two more texts, and I want to open things up for healthy comments and questions. So let me just get these two. Next text. My dear girl, it's text 31. My dear girl, your face is so beautiful, with your nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, very sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you are so covered with shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. Prabhupada talks in the purport about this, how the face is really, what does he say? He says, people becoming attracted by a woman's face, her face, eyebrows, and eyes, and voice. Yeah. And then Prabhupada touches on the difference between knowledge and ignorance. He says the conditional life is called avidya. Opposed to this avidya is real knowledge. Sri Ishopanishads describes between distinguishes between vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance. By avidya, ignorance, one becomes conditioned, and by vidya, knowledge, one becomes liberated. Ranjana admits herein that he is attracted by avidya. Now he wishes to see the complete feature of avidya, and so requests the girl to raise her head so that he can see her face to face. He thus wishes to see the various features that make avidya attractive. So he's playing with fire a little bit here. Next text. Narada continued, "My dear king, when Puranjana became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king." And Prabhupada touches on how this, let's just read this because it's nice. By this incident, we can understand that when a man is aggressive and begins to woo a woman, I don't know of another place where Prabhupada says woo a woman, but it's here. The woman becomes attracted to the man. This process is described in the Bhagavatam 5.5.8 as pumsa striya mituni bhavam metam. This attraction is enacted on the platform of sexual life. Thus, the sex impulse is the platform of material engagement. This conditional life, the platform of material sense gratification, is the cause of forgetfulness of spiritual life. In this way, a living entity's original Krishna consciousness becomes covered and converted into material consciousness. Thus, one engages in the business of sense gratification. So, yeah, that really, again, in terms of reinforcing a wrong direction, utilizing, building up a fortress or a vehicle of so-called independence, we can find others within our life that support that image, that think it's cool that we smoke 6 packs of cigarettes a day and still do beer bongs in our 30s, we can find these different individuals that, despite how degrading and even just on a physical level damaging it is to our health and mindset, they reinforce that. So within a spouse as well, within a partner, if not a spouse, you can also find that. You can find where the focus is placed on material in enjoyment, and it's you kind of reinforce that between the two of you, that trajectory, and it can be the opposite of progressive. It can be degrading, and yet within a relationship, within a group of friends that have a similar mindset, a trajectory towards pleasing Krishna, it can be the most beneficial, because then even when you're not feeling it, you're not feeling like it's where you want to be. They can help encourage you in that positive trajectory. So association is a very powerful thing, and shouldn't be underestimated. So those were some of the main things that I wanted to touch on. I wanted to open it up if there are any, what do you call it, sage words from our assembly here.
The discussion was reminding me of how careful Srila Prabhupada was to not be with women alone, even up to the point of his own sister, Shima. That he would, and several disciples have anecdotes of Prabhupada insisting that they be in the room. And they, thought, I should leave. This is Prabhupada's sister. They might be having some intimate conversation. So I've noticed myself that even for the sake of, I've made the mistake of, in goodwill, trying to help somebody who happens to be a girl come to Krishna consciousness. I'll spend alone time with them, and they naturally develop feelings, even if you don't have that intention. If they're not situated well, which usually people who come to Krishna consciousness are not, then they're going to develop feelings, and it's both parties are helpless to that situation, and it's the to not be sober about it is really dangerous, and not actually compassionate. So that your talk was just reminding me of all that.
Nice, thank you. What else? Shlokas or anything?
I thought it was interesting about the eyebrows thing.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's mentioned several times, today about the eyebrows, and it made me think of, you were telling me about the one deity that had the really pronounced eyebrows, and then he had to
It was Radharaman and Arjuna Bhattacharya Prabhu. He had taken this gorgeous photo of Radharaman with this enormous lens. And it was so intense that you could see that Radharaman was he's a self-manifested deity. So no one carved him. He just appeared, has these really delicate eyebrows. And it's described that to counteract the lust of Cupid, you meditate on Krishna's eyebrows.
So ever since told me this story, and that was the first thing that when you were reading that purport, I was thinking immediately about that story about the focusing on, and does it work if you just focus on Krishna's eyebrows in general, or is it just that particular?
Krishna's eyebrows in general, there's a kind of benediction given in the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
And if you think about the imagery of an eyebrow, it looks like a bow. Mm-hmm. So to counteract the arrows of Cupid, we look to be shot with the piercing arrows of Krishna's attractive features, and that's without divulging too much. There's a meditation in Gaudiya Vaishnavism of meditating on the features of Krishna's form as arrows, the actual body of Krishna, and seeing that attractive quality of them as piercing, and wanting to be pierced by the attraction to those things.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So I thought it was it's just a powerful tool to have in your bag, if you're having a struggle with that particular, a lot of lusty desires, to just, go sit in front of your altar and focus on Krishna's eyebrows.
It's interesting how there's the polar up, the opposites.
Yeah.
And then on that same way of meditating on Krishna's different features being shot. Sorry.
You're Krishna away.
Meditating on Krishna's different features being shot through the bow. In contrast, it could be the opposite sex, or like it being like, the different features, and again with that contemplation of the object of the senses. But yeah, really, when you understand things as they are, you're not seeing people as objects of your senses. It's a very gross thing when you think about it, like to think of someone as like a tool for your. It's like, it's very like
Objectifying.
Yeah, it's very objectifying, very greasy and gross. Maybe that was too vivid. Unfortunate. So, unless there are any other words, or if I need to make it across okay.
No.
Jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, the Premanande.